The other day, I'm rewatching one of my favorite movies of all time, and perhaps controversially my favorite Stanley Kubrick film ever, Eyes Wide Shut, when all of a sudden I noticed something. Let's see if you catch it too. Lamps. There's lamps everywhere in this movie. Almost every frame of this film has a lamp in it, and this random realization shifted something in my brain because all I see in every movie I watch now is lamps. Lamps are simply everywhere. Comedies, action films, dramas, sci-fi, old movies, new movies, big lamps, small lamps, old lamps, new lamps, cool lamps, ugly lamps, lamps that are on, lamps that are off, lamps that defy logic. There's so many lamps. Now, you might be thinking I've lost my mind and I'm implying there's some big Hollywood psyop conspiracy orchestrated by the lamp industry and the CIA, and maybe that's true. But in actuality, there's a really simple reason why filmmakers love lamps. Lamps are light, more specifically diegetic light, which is light that originates within the world of the story. This might be light from a table lamp, which is called a practical light, or sunlight coming in through a window, which is natural light. A somewhat oversimplification would be that lamps allow filmmakers to light their scenes in a way that feels realistic by showing us lights we understand in the real world. Instead of light just coming from nowhere, we see lamps and our brains understand that the light is originating from a source, even if those lamps are not the only thing lighting the scene. Stanley Kubrick was a big fan of diegetic lighting because it allowed him a freedom to move the camera wherever he wanted within a scene, without having to reset or rebuild complicated setups, which takes more time and more crew. David Fincher is also a huge fan of lamps for a lot of the same reasons as Kubrick, but particularly when he switched to digital, which allows for better low light performance and less reliance on artificial lighting.
I mean, one of the great things about shooting digitally is that a desk lamp can actually function as a piece of set dressing, and it can provide a key light, so it's both functional and it becomes part of your look.
There's a scene in season 2 of HBO's Euphoria with the character Jules holding a desk lamp in a classic interrogation setup, and to the viewer this seems simple. They're holding a lamp, so naturally when we cut back to Jules' face, the light is reflecting off the wall. But if you look at the behind the scenes, it's actually lit with upwards of 3 strategically placed lights. The viewer thinks it's just a lamp, but the lamp is merely an illusion for the stylized reality the filmmaker has created. A trend in modern big-budget TV right now is very dark and moody lighting, often seemingly lit by nothing but the darkest lamps a person could find. Apple TV's Servant is a great example. This house is dark. People have lights to light their homes, but it seems no matter what room of this house you end up in, no light is ever bright enough. But even if the lighting is unrealistic, it sets a mood and tone for the show that feels right. It feels sinister and uneasy. This house is the opposite of inviting. I'd probably go as far as saying that what separates cinematic TV from the things that look cheap or artificial is the usage of lamps and shadow. Almost every new modern cinematic television series has an abundance of lamps. Lamps are now embedded in the visual vocabulary of cinema, in film, and TV. I really think the best way to describe the power of lamps in a scene is to consult the godfather of lamps, Steven Spielberg. His film Catch Me If You Can is peak lamp. Just like Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut, nearly every frame of this movie has a lamp in it, and not just one. Here's a simple hotel lobby scene. Even though this seems like a somewhat comical amount of lamps filling every empty space of the frame, these lamps add contrast and dimension to the shot. And that becomes very apparent as soon as the lamps are removed. A lively shot full of contrast and depth suddenly becomes dull and boring. Spielberg not only used lamps for light, he also used them for texture in his scenes, often leaving them off just to add shape and depth to his frames. Now, where things get extra interesting is in how filmmakers have devised clever ways to include lamps in scenes that often defy conventional logic. There's one lamp in Rian Johnson's Knives Out that might make you scratch your head because it's just a glass orb sitting on a glass table. I ended up reaching out to Rian and his cinematographer Steve Yedlin about this lamp, and Steve graciously replied, "It's simply a glass ball with a light bulb inside it." I was so into this fixture, I decided to make one myself with a small LED light and a ceiling lamp globe. Does this lamp make sense? Not really. I don't think many people have glass battery-powered lamps on their coffee table, but it looks good. Now, sometimes lamps can still go a bit off the rails. In Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 3, in this already somewhat bizarre kitchen scene where Harry Osborn makes an omelet with Mary Jane, there's 2 lamps just sitting on the kitchen counter. Maybe I live in a bubble, but first of all, I've never seen a kitchen with Victorian-style lamps in real life, but also, practically speaking, these lamps are completely out of place. One of them isn't even on. The kitchen already has under-cabinet lighting. These lamps are just there to add depth to the scene. They're movie lamps, not real lamps. They wouldn't exist in the real world. They only make sense on screen. Oddly placed or an abnormally high quantity of lamps are in the same realm as people kissing in the rain, or running through airport security to chase the love of your life, or even doing complicated math on a window. We just accept these ideas and concepts because it's a movie, even if we don't ever experience them ourselves. Look, I don't want this video to seem like an attack on lamps. I'm okay with lamps. We should all be okay with lamps. Movies are a heightened version of our own reality. But if the intention of using lamps in movies is to create a sense of realism within the film world by avoiding too much artificial light, should it not be an actual reflection of our real world? I'm sure you own a lamp, you might even own a few, but have you ever seen lamps on an airplane? Have you ever been to a bar with a lamp on every single table? Or even a restaurant? How would you move the tables around? Are there like 100 outlets in this place? What's their electricity bill? At this point, it doesn't matter. Lamps look good, and they're not going away anytime soon. So next time you watch a movie, look for the lamps and slowly descend into madness, just like I have making this video.
Hello?
Honey?
Hello, is that you?
Look, I think the lamp people are after me because of my video. So if you don't hear from me for a while, maybe call the police. But honestly, I don't know how deep this thing goes, so... Anyways, have a good night.